0 Hour back. Tim Lloyd with Jeff Hobbs, joined as promised by our guy Cody Saftic, and we are here to break down the professional fights for this Saturday's Aries 16. It's going down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, downtown Chattanooga, from the Chattanooga Convention Center. Beautiful venue. First time there, actually, for us, as we have left the confines of the Camp Jordan Arena to make our way downtown like the Jeffersons. And we appreciate you sitting in with us here today. We're going to go through the pro fights. We've got the odds for these pro fights, and of course, always excited to have Cody with us to break these down as only he can, including a fellow Canadian on the card, so probably knows more about him than we do. So definitely excited here. Before we get going, guys, do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll get notified when we put new content up. We've got the Aries 15 bouts going up around us as we speak, so you can catch all the fights from Aries 15. They're going up right now, and if you subscribe, you'll know when Aries 16 finally makes it up. It'll be a while. You need to be watching this weekend for that. Of course, you can watch at Spectation Sports. SpectationSports.com will have the pay-per-view, and then, of course, if you need tickets, there aren't many left. I don't even know. Should I even say anything about online tickets, Jeff, or are those gone?
I don't know, man. It's getting so close. They could come down to today, tonight.
Yeah. If you're watching this like right when it posts, you may go to fightertix.com and make sure you got tickets there. But if they're not on there, we will have a very, very limited amount of tickets available at the door, because we know that there will be walk-up people that are traveling in, and we hate for them to come all the way and there'd be nothing. But I would still encourage you to get them sooner than later. Cody, man, a long time. It's been a minute since we've had you on the show, and we are stoked to have you back. And with a card like this one, we figured we may as well pull at the big guns.
Well, if you're a side sap like me and you can't make it and you can't buy one of the limited tickets still left, then Spectation Sports. I mean, it's going to be a good card. It's going to be a very nice show. And of course, Spectation just delivers a very nice stream, a very nice broadcast. So even though I'm stuck in the Great White North still, and it's still cold over here, I'll definitely be catching the fights and warming up that way. So happy to be joined. Big fan of Aries, obviously, and I follow the schedule. So when it had come out, it said at the bottom, it's like an unannounced amped event. I was like, oh, I can't wait for that unannounced amped event. When I seen this card in Chattanooga, you could fool me and told me this was the amped event. It's loaded top to bottom. The amateur portion features a bunch of the state's top undefeated amateurs. And then, of course, the pro portion, not crazy to think that 2 or 3 of these fighters are going to be up the call up to the Bellators, the PFLs, the UFCs in the very, very near future. So very excited to be breaking it down.
Jeff Hobbs, of course, it is fight week. It's crazy for us. We already recorded the amateur preview, which you can check out, and I would encourage you to, as we talk for about an hour about that shit. You ready for this thing, man?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm definitely ready. Like I said, I keep watching the clock. Like, when can I pack my bags and go? And you know what? By the time this video drops, I will be on my way, because I'm going to head out of here tomorrow after work and just start getting to Chattanooga. But yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. So let's not waste any more time, man. Let's get to it. Your first professional bout of the evening, Saturday night. It is a catchweight bout at 160 pounds, as normal, 3 5-minute rounds from Ring Combat Sports. And, that gym will sound familiar, to you guys that follow Aries. But Micah, the original Sheffy, is going to make his professional debut against Carter Beekman, also making his long-awaited debut. Carter Beekman's a guy that has been looking to make his debut for a few times. He's actually been licensed for a while. The debut just never happened for one reason or another. But Carter is out of the Agogi Combatives gym right there in that Chattanooga/Ringgold state line right there. Our first fight, Sheffy versus Beekman.
Yeah, I'll kind of set you up here, Cody, before we get your input. We've got like Jeff mentioned, 160-pound catch weight. Both these guys typically would be at 155. Not crazy short notice. I would think Sheffy probably jumped in here on about a month, but at the time he was a little bit heavy, so we need to go 160 on this one. Beekman, we'll do him first. Obviously the hometown guy, Agogi Combatives. He's a guy that has been trying to get this debut in now for a while, and I think maybe we're going to get there this time. He's a guy with a fair amount of amateur experience, nearly 10 fights as an amateur. He's held some amateur titles, I want to say this is only maybe a second fight with Agogi. First time fighting for us under Agogi. Most of his fights under the Blaylocks banner back in the day. So he is will have his first home fight, I guess you would say, under Agogi. Micah Sheffy, teammate of Robbie Ring, as implied in the gym name. He's a guy with a whole lot of amateur fights, over 20. And, all of those fights, if I'm not mistaken, there may be one or two lingering out there, but almost all those fights for the Ring family's Titans of the Cage promotion there in Whitfield, Virginia. So I think this may be his first ever time fighting away from home. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty positive this is, his first, if not one of his only times fighting away from home. It'll be interesting to see, how he performs in front of what'll be a pretty rowdy Chattanooga crowd, even though a good portion of those fans are going to be there for Robbie Ring that are making the trip. So I think he's going to siphon off some of that energy, to counteract that Beekman hometown advantage. So Cody, let's get your thoughts on before. Well, as you see that on the screen here, I guess Jeff's got them up here for us. The odds, they got Beekman as a 3-1 favorite, -300. Sheffy coming back at +250. 1.5's the total. Juice to the under at -180 with +155 on the over. I don't hate the way they've lined this out. I think that's it's pretty fair. Your take, Cody.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think Beekman should be the favorite. -300 sounds about right. And then I think this thing's looking at the under 1.5 rounds. And again, that's kind of juiced to that -180. So the lines maker said it pretty fair. And I think that the action's going to head, in that direction. But again, I think it's set very accordingly. What you got here is Sheffy versus Beekman, and two guys that are in polar opposite ends of their careers. Sheffy's been fighting amateur for 13 years. He made his amateur debut in 2010. At one point, he was actually 11-1 as an amateur. How many 11-1 amateurs just don't go pro? He just never chose to go pro. I think it's more of a bucket list thing. He likes to compete. He likes to stay active. He likes to go to the gym and then test himself in the cage. But at no point do I think he decided, I want to pursue this and go professional and try to make it to the UFC and try to step outside of my comfort zone. It's no disrespect to his level of competition, but when you go through it, there's a lot of these not availables: 3-4, 1-4, 2-3, 8-8, 3-11. I think it's like a weekend warrior thing. He enjoys to compete. He enjoys to get in there. He enjoys to test himself, but I don't think he's crazy enough to think that he's going to win a title anytime soon. He's also 37, making him 11 years older than Beekman. So you have a guy here that fought a very long time as an amateur, now 37. He's had one fight in the last 4 years. So not looking to stay active, not looking to compete, but Robbie's on the card. Robbie's going to go down. Why not? Why not get to experience a packed crowd and a packed venue? And this would be the biggest stage he's ever competed on. No disrespect to the Titans of the Cage promotion, but just this is a big show with professional fighters, very high level professional fighters that'll go on to bet big things. Why not jump at the experience? So I can see why he's getting in there. He's definitely a finisher as well. He prefers to get it done by submission, but at the same time, if you give him anything, an arm, a leg, he'll try to attack it. I just think that when he doesn't get that finish, when he doesn't get that submission, generally he falls prey to it as well. As I mentioned, he did have one fight in the last 4 years. It was a couple years ago, 2021, but his last fight prior to that, 2019, and prior to that, a couple fights in 2018, and then it just starts to slink back. So Carter Beekman, meanwhile, when you look at the high end of Tennessee banger, you got Nate Landwehr. The guy's a Tennessee bang Hall of Fame, right? And then I know Trevor Peake's not from Tennessee, but he's an adopted son of the state of Tennessee. He's your right below your Nate Landwehr. You got your Trevor Peake. When you go below that, you get to your Carter Beekman. This kid can throw hands, man. My God, he's got the one thing that gym owners and coaches, they salivate for because you can't teach it. He's got raw punching power. And you just look at his amateur record. A lot of these guys do not get to, wake up the next day and remember what happened. Especially, I remember Darren Hastings. This is going to sound like a shot to the Tennessee Athletic Commission, but it's not. The referee didn't have enough time to get in there in time. His opponent, Hastings, is unconscious and frozen standing. And Beekman just lays them hands go. He's got fast hands. He's an athletic kid. He moves well. He's always going for the kill. And I think that's what makes him a very dangerous fighter. Coming in here against Micah Sheffy, that's why I like the under 1.5. I think Beekman's going to try to put hands on him, close the distance, fight him probably inside the pocket, and then just let those hands go. Whereas Sheffy, meanwhile, if he can overcome that early storm, maybe get this fight to the ground, maybe clip him and intercept him with something on the way in, then he would also finish it in under 1.5 round. Both scenarios, no matter who wins, probably not going to be a fight that's going to be boring, that's going to go 15 minutes, that the fans are going to go outside for a beer break or whatever the case may be. I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight for as long as it lasts, just might not last all that long. So Beekman by knockout under 1.5.
All right, guys. Awesome breakdown on our very first professional fight of the night. Let's move on to the second one. Second pro fight of the night will be in the featherweight division. Again, 3 5-minute rounds. Another guy that is making that trip to take a professional debut to kind of tag alongside a teammate that's on the card. You're going to see Josh Koba Delgadillo making his professional debut out of Team Chaos. Same team that you will hear later on Corey Delaney fighting out of. And Delgadillo is going to be taking on another Agogi guy. You're going to hear that Agogi name several times in this professional side of this card since we are in their hometown. Starboy Andrew Sturdivant, who's 1-0, won his professional debut at the Cotton Eye Joe in Knoxville, Tennessee. So the Starboy is his sophomore outing, if you will, and it gets to be in front of the hometown crowd, taking on Josh Delgadillo.
Yeah, so Delgadillo, we'll cover him first. Like you mentioned, coming down from Columbus, Ohio area, teammate of Corey Delaney. He's a guy that we saw many times as an amateur, at least 3 times, and very impressive every time. We put him in very difficult matchups, and with the win over Cody Noel, that was a guy that coming out of that Jackson Wink camp that we had, I pegged him as going to be a very, very good talent. And he fought him and got the win there. And then he went to Nashville and took a fight against Q2, who was another guy that we had pegged as a top prospect, a guy that was very explosive. Not a lot of guys wanted to fight Q2. Got a triangle win there in a hostile crowd in Nashville. So he is no stranger to going into people's hometowns and getting wins. Almost pulled it off a third time, fighting against Emilio Hernandez, a very decorated, high-level competitive black belt, undefeated amateur fighter as well. And he ended up getting submitted in that one, but has shown good power in his hands. He can drop you. He can get submissions, as evidenced by the win that he had prior to that against Q2. So this is a dangerous guy. This fight is a 145, but that'd be the one probably immediate detractor, I would think, versus Andrew Sturdivant, who is also representing Agogi. He has traveled the same path as Carter Beekman for the most part, both former Blaylocks guys that moved over to Agogi after Chet's unfortunate passing. And so he's another guy that has not had a lot of fights with this new camp. However, also like Beekman, had several pro debuts. Scrapped at the last minute. He did get that pro debut in at the Joe a couple months back. That fight's up here on our YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, it is a bloody one. And that was a fight that he got the win with a cut stoppage in the third round over a very difficult Titus Moore out of Jimmo. So 1-0 coming in here for Sturdivant. And I'm excited to hear Cody's take on this one. This one, we've got lined at a pick'em almost. I mean, it's very small favorite is Andrew Sturdivant at minus 130. Delgadillo coming back at plus 110. The total set at 2.5, minus 110 both ways. So they see this as being very close. This is one that I could see a finish, but I could certainly see it going all the rounds too. So I definitely like the way that it's lined on the total. Cody, your take.
Yeah, I actually really like this fight a lot. Andrew Sturdivant is going to be your classic prototypical wrestler in that he excels kind of in the grappling and the wrestling and kind of putting pressure on his opponents, taking on Josh Delgadillo, who he's the boxer. He's just made his professional boxing debut not that long ago. He's got quick hands, a very quick guy. So it's very much your classic striker versus grappler. And if either guy's able to implement their game plan and fight it to their best of their abilities, they can win this fight. Josh Delgadillo's hands are way more fluid, they're way sharper. I think he's going to have a big striking advantage. Where he has a disadvantage is that he's a natural 135-pound fighter, a little bit undersized, and that when you're focusing so much on your boxing, how much are you focusing on the other elements of MMA? You go back to his last amateur fight versus Jeremy Balboa. Jeremy Balboa just spams takedowns whenever he wants them. And you can see that Delgadillo is very comfortable standing and probably the better striker. He also has good scrambles. He's originally out of Ohio, pretty much everybody in Ohio knows how to wrestle to some level. You can see that it's a work in progress, but there's certainly something there. It's like when you're fighting a bigger guy in Balboa up a weight class at 145 pounds, and he's got this game plan of sticking to the wrestling and pursuing those takedowns, it's very hard to overcome. And of course, he ends up dropping the unanimous decision. How does Andrew Sturdivant fight him? Well, he would have to do exactly that. Sturdivant, as an amateur as well, wasn't one to shy away from the tough fights. His losses are to Garrett Sharp, Alexei Purgante, Silas Reynolds. The guy fought very high level. He's definitely one to go out there and test himself. And so when he eventually decides it's time to turn pro and he takes on Titus Moore, that Titus Moore guy was good, man. He was solid. And I'll admit something. I thought Titus Moore won the first 2 rounds. So now you have an Andrew Sturdivant who's down 2 rounds going into the third. He needs a finish. Nothing else but a finish is going to get him the job. And you see in the third, he looked a little tired in the second. He comes out in the third, man on a mission. He knows he's at a striking disadvantage. He knows he's been getting touched up on the feet. Doesn't matter. He throws a big left hook. He closes the distance, shoots on the hips, sucks him off the cage, and gets to work. Gets on top, starts to land some ground and pound, busts him up, and there's a lot of blood that come out of that cut. So fair stoppage. It wasn't like, oh, man, you got lucky. No, he knew he had a job to do, and he went down and he did exactly that. That's your pro debut. A young fighter will learn so much more from having to face that adversity, from going down 2 rounds, having to make the adjustments and come back. And also, the third round, you're tired, and you're down 2, and your confidence is low. And he decides, you know what, I got something to go do, and he goes and he does it. So having that self-belief is going to be huge. Knowing that you can now rely on your cardio, have a little more confidence in it, you're going to see a much better version of him now in his second fight than I think you did in the first one. Delgadillo, still a better striker, still could catch him and knock him out, no doubt about it, but you're going to need to knock him out because you know this kid's going to come at you for all 15 minutes. And if he gets those takedowns, which as the bigger man with the better wrestling, he probably will end up getting those takedowns. I think that he uses them very effectively and just grounds him en route to the victory. So I will take Andrew Sturdivant to get the victory. I could see him kind of dragging this thing into the later rounds as well. So maybe hit that over on the round prop. And yeah, Delgadillo, he's a scrambler. Like he's not going to quit on him at any point. I don't see an easy submission victory. It could be a fight. Both guys are going to test each other and make each other earn the victory. And both guys will be even better fighters because of the experience. So close fight, and I think that's what makes good matchmaking. It makes entertaining fights. Both guys have their chances to win, but of course, you know, you guys are big fight fans as well. Wrestler versus striker. Twist my arm some more. Why don't you? 90% of fights hit the ground at some point, and the grappler is going to have his chances.
All right, guys. We are going to head to the third professional bout of the evening. This one sponsored by my favorite sponsors, Proper 12 Irish Whiskey. It's in the featherweight division, another featherweight fight here. This one is going to see Delgadillo's teammate, Corey Delaney, who we have seen so many times, but at lightweight. Corey Delaney making that jump down to featherweight, which I think ultimately, Tim, I know you agree, is going to be, the weight class he is more optimal in. But Corey Delaney will be taking on the undefeated prospect, uber prospect, if you will, from Ring Combat Sports, Wytheville, Virginia, Razor Robbie Ring.
Yeah, we're familiar with both of these guys, very familiar. Delaney last time out, had a tough loss to Charlie Alexander in Nashville. We saw the leg kicks really, take their toll on him in that fight. So I would have to imagine that's something that he's, addressed and worked on. And it was interesting because Robbie was asking me, yesterday or day before, he was trying to watch that fight, and I guess they had the wrong file up on Spectation. So up until like yesterday, he hadn't been able to watch that. And it's something I think that if you did watch, that you would certainly pick up some things potentially. But anyway, he's coming off the loss to Charlie Alexander, second round TKO, and as Jeff mentioned, that fight at 155, where he has applied most of his fights at between 50 and 55. Fought some tough cats, man. He's fought some of the very, very toughest guys that we around, our region at the very least, and some guys out of our region for that matter. So At 45, I think there's no doubt that is where he needs to be. Short, compact, athletic, explosive. I think he's slammed everybody he's fought. For better or worse. So Corey's he's gonna be a guy that you're gonna his record isn't the most stellar at 4-9. His strength of schedule, however, is you probably put it up against most anyone's here in this region. So always dangerous. You're gonna have to earn it with him. Robbie, of course, undefeated. We've got Robbie making that what I believe will be a permanent move up to 145 at this point. And this will be, I think it's safe to say, probably the most athletic guy that Robbie has fought as a pro up until this point. Robbie had some opportunities on the table a few months ago, to dance under the bright lights just on extremely short notice, like days notice. So, he's a guy that's knocking at the door. They know his name, and we'll see if a win here gets him the call or not. Obviously, he's got to bring it still against Delaney because, Delaney's dangerous. He's athletic. He's a very strong guy. And if you sleep on him, he can beat you. Beat Nick Campbell, who came in here and knocked off another top prospect a couple shows back. He armbarred him. So you can't slip with him. Cody, the odds on this one, pretty wide. This is our most wide gap that we've got on this card. That's to be expected, I think. And Robbie's minus 1,200 and Corey coming back at plus 1,000, 10-1 you get on Corey. Total 1.5. Over has the juice. I'm sorry, under has the juice at minus 300. Over plus 275. And interested to get your take here, Cody.
Yeah, listen, I mean, after the Aries Amp show, we all left out of Nashville, and it was like, man, what do you think the future holds for some of these guys? Like Robbie Ring is going to the UFC. Trevor Peek is going to the UFC. And since then, Trevor Peek got a fight on Contender Series, won, made a UFC debut and won. Robbie Ring hasn't competed since. So it's all about, the right timing and the right opportunities and this and that. And I understand they offered him a UFC debut on short notice. And I think it's, a kudos to his parents and his management team for turning it down. Not a whole lot of people say no to the UFC. They'll say, just go lose. Who cares? Your short notice up a weight class against some killer. Just go lose. And then you got a 4-fight deal. You'll have a full camp the next time. Yeah, why should a young kid who's undefeated think like that? Undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro, strong martial artist, been doing martial arts since he's just an infant. Parents are both martial artists, own their own promotion. This kid's been groomed the proper way. So what's the sense in just, rushing at the last minute? He beat Jacob Kilburn. You could see right then, right there, this kid had the goods. He's got an advanced ground game to go on top of the fact that he was a striker. I thought he was a striker, most comfortable in the striking department. And then I seen him against Kilburn. I tell you what, this kid's world class, and he's only going to be getting better and better. But why jump too much too soon? Did I expect him to take maybe a stiffer fight than Corey Delaney? Sure, but all the same, a fight's a fight. He needs to shake off some of the ring rust. He's still only got 5 pro fights, so moving himself to 6-0, 7-0, 8-0 is always going to be good. And of course, the UFC do got their eyes on him, so they'll be looking for Robbie Ring. There's the one thing where he could potentially get himself in trouble because at minus 1,200, listen, I think we all agree, the betting public agrees, Robbie Ring is the rightful favorite. You got an undefeated 5-0 prospect versus a 4-9, journeyman type record opponent. You're going to jump Robbie Ring. How could things possibly go wrong for Robbie Ring? So if I was to play devil's advocate, this is my only one thing. When he fought Jacob Kilburn in the first round, he's dominating Jacob Kilburn. Near the end of the first round, he flops back for a leg lock and allows Jacob Kilburn to end up on top, lands some decent ground and pound, and ends the first round actually looking for an arm triangle choke. After the fight, Robbie Ring came by us, and we didn't have to bring it up. He knew right away. He said, I shouldn't have gone for that leg lock in the first. That's how smart this kid is, and I do believe he's smart, is that he knew right away that was a mistake. But here's the thing when you're a young kid, you're going to make mistakes. It's just something that happens. You're going to have these little slip-ups here and there, okay? So now you're taking on Corey Delaney. The easiest path to victory is take him down and submit him. His wrestling's definitely good enough to get the fight to the ground. His jiu-jitsu is definitely good enough to get this first round submission. I think that'd be the easy path. But maybe he wants to test out his striking. And he's asking you, Tim, hey, can I get that footage of Charlie Alexander? And you might see the leg kicks, and you might say, hey, I'm a good striker, which he is. I can beat this guy striking, which he can. But now you're doing something that's not the easiest path to victory. It's what's going to get the fans excited and what's going to, lead to a highlight reel finish at the UFC. The UFC doesn't want to see him take down Corey Delaney and submit him in the first round. They don't. They want to see that big finish. They want to see that, a first round finish, I guess they do want to see, but not just a quick, everyone knew you were going to rear naked choke them, so you did. They might want to see something more. When you start to try to fight for that something more, when you try to start to excite the fans, you're giving Corey Delaney a chance now. And I'll tell you what, 4-9, but don't overlook that 4-9. Almost everybody he fights is good. He's got 19 pro boxing matches. 12 of those pro boxers that he fought were undefeated at the time. Never says no to a fight. He's a big 45er. And like you said, he's the most athletic guy that Robbie Ring would have fought in already. He's got a nasty jab on him. And he's got some decent footwork. I would say at the end of the day, if you're just going to allow this guy to throw punches with you, he's a dangerous opponent. If you take him to the ground and neutralize him, you're going to look like a minus 1,200 favorite. It's up to Robbie what he wants to go do. But sky's the limit for this kid. He's got a massive amount of potential. He's got a great management team. He's got a great team around him. And I think that he'll make the right choices. But as a fight fan, I want to see him stand and bang with Corey Delaney. Who doesn't? But who else wants to see that? Corey Delaney. That's what he's open on as well. But I like the fight. I do. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think, we need to add as well when we're talking about, the level of opponent for this show. Robbie Ring, originally, this fight was going to be showcased by Robbie Ring versus Zach Hicks. That was the fight. And so Robbie Ring did take that quote unquote tough fight. And that was what was supposed to be on this card as our headliner. Zach Hicks got the call up to the PFL. And this was just kind of just a change of course, if you will. But regardless of that call up, to the UFC, that short notice call up, Robbie Ring was well prepared and signed the dotted line. That contract was signed, actually, and that was going to be a hell of a banger. Nice fight, Zach Hicks versus Robbie Ring. So, just for the record, there was another fight that Robbie had agreed to. It just didn't pan out.
And I'll give Robbie some credit as well, is that he's very active on social media, and you can tell he is not overlooking Corey Delaney at all. Like, the kid's in the gym all the time. All he does is support his teammates, support everything. But it's just gym, train, goal. So I would think a slip up is a low case scenario, but this is MMA, baby. We've all seen it happen.
Yep. All right, guys, we are going to head into the feature bout of the evening, and it truly is. When you say feature bout, it's not just the third spot from the end. This is truly a feature bout. This one has a lot of people excited. This was one that came out of nowhere. Tim, I don't know about your messages and text messages and Facebook messages, but mine were going off when this was announced with the just how the hell did this happen a week before the show. But in lightweight action, we have the Canadian badass Michael Dufort from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And he is going to be taking on the one and only Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. We've got 10-4 Dufort, 11-5 Pena at Aries 16, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, like you mentioned, this one kind of came out of nowhere. This is a fight that people were very excited to see get added, and I think we're shocked because, it was no secret. We already said, this show's sold out. Why? There's no point in adding anything else. It's sold out. There's nothing else for us to really push, and so this is a very nice bonus, I would think, for people that had already bought their tickets. To get a fight like this added at the last minute is pretty exciting. A book for another promotion, that was supposed to happen last weekend, I believe. So, these guys were preparing to fight each other for that matter. They've got an extra week to prepare as that promotion canceled their whole show on fight week. And, next thing I know, the managers are starting to talk to Rich Chow. Yeah, it was Spectation, and trying to move this fight over. Both guys were very, dialed in for that fight. Really wanted to keep that fight together. Spectation was able to work out a deal, to land this fight. And what better place to host it than Aries 16, the biggest show dare I say, of the weekend in the South. And so that's going to be a really nice addition. Dufour, Canadian Badass is his nickname, and big record at 9-4. This will be the first time, obviously, that we've hosted him, and so I'm excited to see what he brings. Obviously, I think his first. We've had a Canadian. We had Tom Theocaris, I guess. So it's not our first Canadian, but
Vinny Diaz as well.
Yeah, yep. It's another. So we've had a few Canadians. We like having Canadians down. Of course, Dufour, PFL vet, really nice record, 10-4, and taking on Luis Pena, a guy that back in the day before he hit the big time, he held my pro title at 155 right before he got the call up. So I've hosted and matched Luis a couple times already. He came down here, beat Damir Frapagovic, and then he knocked off Kobe Wallace. So he's had very large amount of success fighting in Tennessee on my card. So it'd be good to see Luis again for sure. A guy that we are very familiar with. Obviously, been in the UFC, been fighting since his he had his issues, I think, squashed at this point, from what I've gathered. Regardless, he has had some fights since. He did that King of Sparta thing in Colorado, I believe, or he's supposed to anyway. And I want to say he had some other fights lined up overseas. So we're excited to have him back. This is a fight that, obviously brings some name recognition in Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena, and I think the fans will be very excited to see it. It certainly buffs up our pay-per-view presentation as well. So I think good chance that this one should rival Amped as far as the number of eyes they're going to be on it, beyond just locals. So they got this one lined very closely as well. They've got Dufour actually as a very minute favorite, minus 120. Luis Pena coming back at even money. And the total set at 2.5, slightly juiced to the over at minus 125. Now you can get the following finish props: Luis Pena plus 350 to knock him out, 500 to sub him, 180 decision with Dufour. The knockout as even better at plus 600, submission at plus 250, decision plus 170. Cody, this makes me think the odds makers would assume this fight's likely going over, the way that these props are priced at the very least, I would think. Your take on this one, man? This one, I'm maybe slightly surprised that Dufour is lined as the betting favorite, minus 120. Just with name value, if anything, I would think that this would be a straight pick'em at worst. Not to say Dufour should or shouldn't be the favorite, just from a public perception angle.
Yeah, I think if Luis Pena wasn't coming off the loss to LT Nelson, then yeah, he'd probably be he'd be the favorite, and he'd probably be a minus 165 range. But I think there's a little bit of hesitancy. Just fought a 5-round fight. It was a banger. He got dropped in the first round. His leg got chewed off by the end of the 5th. It was a tough type fight. So what version of Luis Pena coming through? Maybe that's what they're worrying about. But I love this fight. I think if it wasn't for the fact that it was added a week out of the show, this is your headliner. This is, when you look at Torrance Finney, the question is he ready for the UFC, right? Could be, but there's still that question. When you look at Ian Stevens, is Ian Stevens ready for that next big thing? When you look at Robbie Ring, is Robbie Ring ready for that next big thing? Pena versus Duford could be on a UFC card tomorrow. Nobody bats an eye. These guys are ready to rumble. And for the record, Duford's got as many fights as Torrance Finney, Ian Stevens, and Robbie Ring combined, right? This guy's a veteran himself and still very young. They call him the Canadian Badass because his training partner, Olivier Aubé Mercier, is the Canadian gangster, right? Aubé Mercier, for the record, just wiped up Shane Burgos' ass on the PFL card last weekend. He also won $1 million in the tournament. So what they got going on there at H2O MMA in Quebec under head coach Rich, they got something going on well, and I think that Duford's going to come in excellent shape. This is also not, these guys just took the fight on a week's notice. Because they were already scheduled to fight each other once, I would think they've put in good training camps, and they're kind of gotten ready for that specific type of opponent. This is a 5-round fight. I think I'd take Duford. 3-round fight, I got to go with Luis Pena. Honest, Luis Pena has always had good grappling. That was one thing that we knew about Violent Bob Ross. Nasty back take, very long and good in scrambles, but striking not quite there. Since his time released from the UFC, he's been working a lot on his striking, specifically working a lot of these kickboxing matches. And, he went a split decision with Peter Stoutonic. Peter Stoutonic is a badass, glory kickboxing veteran, a guy that had fought Raymond Daniels twice in the Bellator promotion. First time was actually winning. Second time got killed. All the same. He's fought at a pretty high level. Even LT Nelson. LT Nelson's not a great MMA fighter per se, but he's a long in the tooth professional boxer. Tons of kickboxing experience, tons of Muay Thai experience. They're just tough fights. But Luis Pena has been striking in a lot of those spots. You can tell he's very fluid. He's got a nasty jab. He moves well, but he's still a little hikey up in the air. His head's there for the taking. Some of these wild, overhand shots are still prone to hit him. And that's one thing is he's very entertaining. He's got good striking. He's got good athleticism. He's got good scrambles, but he is still there a little bit vulnerable for his striking defense to get hit here and there. Duford, meanwhile, he's not quite as comfortable with his striking. He'll throw from a little too far out. He'll throw wild spinning back fists. The thing is that he's a steam engine, man. He'll keep coming. You got to bust him up, and then once he's bleeding from the nose and sweaty, then he'll start fighting to the best of his abilities. If you look at his losses, every single loss that Michael Duford has fought has been to an absolute stud. His debut against Kyle Nelson went to the UFC. Second fight against Mario Pereira, had he not quit MMA with a 5-1 record, 100% would have ended up going to the UFC. Jesse Ronson on a split decision, UFC veteran. Kyle Prepelic is a couple fights back, split decision, UFC veteran. But what you see in that Prepelic fight, Prepelic's just a much smoother striker. The first 3 rounds, I thought, Kyle Prepelic won. Rounds 4 and 5, Duford's coming on. Now he's got him tired. Now he's got him backing up. Now he's got him working off his back foot. Now he's mixing in that wrestling. I think all of those will serve him as good weapons against Luis Pena. Be the aggressor. Come forward. Try to land chopping overhand shots. Those big. Get on the inside and try to take him to the ground. But I think Pena's wrestling defense is solid. It looked really good in the Will Brooks fight. I think his scrambles are very good. And not only that, people don't remember with Luis Pena. They remember him being an American top team. And, he got into these troubles while he was in Florida. He's back in Arkansas now, training with Bryce Mitchell. And I think that's going to do him a world of good. Kind of having that smaller crew of, it's a great gym, Westside Martial Arts. Having that smaller crew of guys to get some more personalized work in, I think it would all be good for Pena. This is a 50-50 fight. Don't get me. I hate betting against the Canadian. Trust me, I absolutely do. And I can see Duford winning. And if Duford wins and I bet against the Canadian, I'm going to look like an idiot. But I'm prepared to do so because I think Luis Pena's got the back class. He's got the experience. He's fought in the higher level of competition. And as I mentioned with Duford, all of his losses are UFC veterans. All of his wins are for guys that never got there, right? Luis Pena is another one of these guys that got there. And Pena never got cut from the UFC. Here's a guy that has the rare win and then released from the promotion, unfortunately, because he decided to fight the law, and the law usually wins. But all the charges have been dropped. He's got his life back together. He's doing well, and I think you're going to see a good version of him show up here. So I hate betting against Duford. He's my Canadian brother, and of course, if he wins the fight, I'm going to look like the fool. But that plus money on Luis Pena with the experience that he has, the name guys that he's fought, I think Luis Pena should be the rightful favorite, and I'm willing to take that plus money shot on him. Last but not least, when you look at Duford, I mentioned all of his losses were to those UFC veteran type guys, the step up. He hasn't quite been able to get over that step up. Luis Pena is that step up. Here's a guy that still should probably be in the big show and could conceivably get there very soon.
Beautiful breakdown, guys. Like I said, I mean, how can you not be excited for this fight? Like Tim said, it was already a stacked card. I hate using the word stacked, but by God, it was stacked. And then you just add this on. But what a hell of a way to lead into a co-main event and a main event. Your co-main event of the evening, another guy that has tasted at least the bright lights of the tough house, if you will. Ian Stevens, another local guy, OG in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He will be welcoming into town from Cage Fit out of Alabama. This is a guy that came to us recommended by
Eric Anders.
Eric Anders. Treston Vines, another high-level guy, 5-2, is going to be coming into Chattanooga, taking on Ian Stevens, 5-0, still undefeated. He was on Tough back when I think they were still doing the 2-round things, and they were considered exhibitions. So the fight he lost on the show did not count against his record.
And yeah, that is was a bit of I don't say controversial,
Oh, it
but
was
it was
controversial. It was definitely controversial.
an arguable decision, I would say, in that fight in the Tough House. Ian's a guy, like you mentioned, he's been around a while. Ian's a guy that has been on the Chattanooga scene for as long as I've been around, and so he is a very high level wrestler. He's a guy that honestly. Your fans of today may not remember him, honestly, and so this is a good opportunity, I think, for him to get reacquainted with your today's fans. He's had a lot of gaps in between his fights. Like, it's very rare that you will see fights kind of put together back to back, and a lot of that's because he's very hard to match. Man, one of the hardest guys out there that I've ever had to match. They don't line up to fight Ian. It's very quickly noticed the sort of physical specimen that you're working with here, for one, and for two, a lot of guys do not like that wrestle heavy style that he's been so successful with. No one's been able to knock him off. So he's another guy that is a transplant to a Gogi now, formerly with Blaylocks for his entire career up until the past year or so. So this will be his first fight with the Agogi banner, and he's training with a bunch of killers over there. A very good room, obviously, at this point. Looking to go to 6-0 and get his name back. In the name, his name in the minds of the big matchmakers for UFC, Bellator, the big shows. I think if you think about it, the matchmakers that are there now were not the matchmakers when he was coming up on The Ultimate Fighter. Where that was kind of his most notable endeavor up to this point. I remember also that Jeff, he won the XFC Open Fighter try. The XFC back in the day would come around and do these open fighter tryouts at various locales, and I believe that Ian won his contract to make his pro debut with the XFC. So Ian kind of like jumped right into the deep end pretty quick, from what I recall. Fought some. I want to say he fought like Ryan Quinn. He fought some pretty
Ryan
decent
Quinn
guys.
in his debut fight was Ryan Quinn.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's fought like really tough guys. For the most part of his career, Vines. This will be our first time seeing him in one of our cages, but I am familiar with him. He's a tall, rangy guy out of Alabama. Managed by Eric Anders, and he's going to have the length and reach advantage, I would believe here. He's got 5-2. He's been obviously much more active than Ian, which would be one factor I would think going in his direction. Just how active he's been, including going to some decisions and things like that. I imagine he will come in shape, and the fact that he signed on the dotted line for this one, where many didn't, has got to tell you something that he sees something there that he can exploit here. Cody, the odds on this one also pretty long. I was maybe a little surprised that they were this long. I expected Ian to be the favorite. I don't know about minus 1,000, 10-1 on Ian Stevens to move to 6-0 over Treston Vines, who comes back at plus 800, total at over 1.5, plus 125, under 1.5, minus 150. I think if you asked me a few years ago if I could get an over 1.5 plus money on an Ian Stevens fight, I'd probably be in on it. Cody, your take.
Yeah, listen, when I saw the poster, I said the announcement was like, oh, Ian Stevens. First thought was, oh, there's another Ian Stevens that fights MMA. When I seen it was that Ian Stevens, I was like, no way. No way. Because what has he been up to? Here's a guy that beat Ryan Quinn in his MMA debut, right? He beat Ronnie Rogers. He was supposed to fight Ryan Thomas on an XFC card. Ryan Thomas is a UFC veteran. He's a 20-fight veteran. Fought in the UFC. Is legit. He was always looking to take those big fights. It wasn't just he was on the Ultimate Fighter. He beat Lyman Good to get into the show. Lyman Good was the current Bellator champion.
Yeah.
Ian Stevens, and they interviewed Ian Stevens beforehand. He's like, yeah, this guy's got a lot more experience than I do, but oh well. That's my two biggest takeaways was he was just like nonchalant, oh well, and also that his chest was like out to here. This guy's built, man. And he's very, very quick. He's very athletic, and everything's just big shot takedown. He took down Lyman Good at will. Lyman Good could not get back up. It was a whole joke. Dana's laughing cage side. Wow, the Bellator champ can't even get into the Ultimate Fighter. But it was even Stevens. I thought this kid's got a very bright future. And you know what? I'm not the only one. Frankie Edgar picked him with his first-round pick. His first-round pick of the show was Ian Stevens. Because, again, he saw, man, this kid's only 25 years old. He's got freakishly strong, good strength. He's a very solid wrestler. There's something you could work with there. The Roger Zapata fight, though, I think you saw all those great characteristics about him, but you also saw that he was very young and very green. There was no need to exert yourself into everything. He took down Roger Zapata with a takedown in the first round, picks him up and slams him. If it was me, it would have broke my tailbone, man. I think it breaks the average human being's tailbone. He picked him up and dumped him, Super Smash Bros. Style. It was crazy, but it was also maybe not the best way to exert your energy. And so the first round, he's all power wrestling. I scored the round for him. The second round, he's all power wrestling. I scored the second for him as well. I understand the elbows. Here's what you got to realize. A lot of them were illegal because they were 12-6. A lot of them were illegal because they were behind the head. And yet Steve Mazzagatti doesn't do anything. Third round, Steve Mazzagatti took a point away from Roger Zapata for, again, illegal elbows to the back of the head. And even with the point deduction and winning the first 2 rounds, they scored the fight against him. So I didn't agree with it. I didn't understand it. Dana White said some really harsh remarks about how the kid's a wet blanket. The kid's 25 years old, okay? All of his regular training partners, all of his friends and family aren't here. He's stuck in a reality house with a bunch of lights and cameras, people he doesn't know, coaches he's never worked with before. He just fought the Bellator champ like 3 weeks ago. And now he just dumped homie 15 times on the canvas and you robbed him. Oh, it's just a wet blanket. Very, very unfair what they did to Ian Stevens. But instead of jumping back on the horse and going somewhere else, I don't know what he's done. And as a result, he's actually had 1 fight in the last 10 years. And I think that alone is enough to say minus 1,000. How does minus 1,000? I like the kid. I think he can wrestle. He's got big strength. And also, I'm expecting Ian Stevens at 25 versus Ian Stevens now at 34. Think about how much stuff this guy's probably learned in that time. Think about how much better his pace could be, or better his ground and pound could be, or how much better his submissions could be. He already had a good rear naked choke for the record, but how much better could it be now? 9 years, a guy could start jiu-jitsu for the first time and get a black belt, right? So I'm expecting to see a much better version of Ian Stevens. However, the line maker factored that into the line. He's also expecting all of those things. But if you don't get it, could be a bit of a problem. Here's another thing I want to bring up. You guys can maybe help me with this one. So Ian Stevens is huge, man. This guy's a big boy. And was fighting at 185. The only fight he's had in the last 10 years, basically, against Eric Olson, Blood Axe. Like, I did not realize you guys had him on your card. I've never realized that Blood Axe fought for Valor until I checked this. I was like, no way. Anyways, regardless, he fought Blood Axe at 205, right? And all of his other fights are at 185. Now he's going to go down to 170. I'd have to see the weigh-ins before I ever hit a minus 1,000 because it could be a tough cut. And tough cuts aren't great. And if he gasses out because he didn't rehydrate properly or whatever the case may be, the ring rust and some injuries and a bad cut, like all of that is just cause for concern. And when you're laying 10-1, you don't want any cause for concern. Trustin Vines, meanwhile, I'm actually very impressed with what I see out of this kid. Very athletic, moves very well. He's just not super physically built. Like he's more of a John Jones built. He's long and he's lanky and he can generate a lot of power and he moves extremely well and he has good speed. But I think if you were to just grab a hold of him, you could potentially wrangle him over to the ground. He showed in his fight versus that Mashabrov, he's got good scrambles. Like he gave up a lot of takedowns, but he had a good ability to scramble back to the top, to end up on top, to mount him. His fight with Shlomo Boyd. Shlomo Boyd's good. He took down Shlomo Boyd in every round. He did some very good groundwork. I think his ground game's solid. His striking's solid. He has a striking advantage over Ian Stevens on paper just because I haven't seen Ian Stevens strike in 10 years. Like, I don't know. Could have gotten better. Should have gotten better. Probably did get better. But I don't know for sure. So striking advantage has got to go to Vines. And then wrestling advantage, got to go to Stevens. He's got the power. He's got the size. Vines usually fights at 170. He is a welterweight. Stevens does not look out of place at 205 pounds. Certainly doesn't look out of place at 185. At 170, he's going to be big, strong boy. Big, strong boy, probably all it takes here is, put hands on him, get a hold of him, take him to the ground. He'll soften him up. He gives up his back, try to get that rear naked choke. I, again, don't love the line, but if there was one way that I think I would attack this is I think I would go for the over-under. Ian Stevens, Yeah, the over 1.5 at plus 125. I think that's the way to go. You got Stevens that Dana calls him a wet blanket because he doesn't go for it, but he's also not fought in 10 years. He's 30, or he's fought the one fight. He's 34 years old. He might want to, slow things down a little bit. Don't just go for this quick finish and overexert yourself. Maybe take your time and shake off some of that ring rust, get comfortable in there. And Vines, meanwhile, he's not quitting. You got to put his lights out. He's had his lights put out a few times, but those are by big, heavy power punchers, and Stevens hasn't proven to be that. So I think more often than not, Stevens gets his takedowns. He takes over that 1.5 to get set up, but then probably by the end of the second and the third, the submission opens up for itself.
I think one of the funnest games I've had leading up to this fight is there was a really nice training photo of Torres Finney and Ian Stevens. They took a picture together after a training session, and I've sent that around to a lot of people. I just said, "Who's the 185er and who's the 170?" And no one has gotten it right yet. Ian is on one side, but he's kind of in the forefront too of the picture, so it makes him look even huger. But yeah, hard to believe that man's going to make 170. But I do believe he's going to do it because again, this guy is an uber athlete. Like he has got his he knows his body, I think, really well. And that wrestling background, he's got that wrestler weight cut down pat. So I tend to believe that he's going to make it. And I think, Cody, you made a good point, though. He may not have fought in 10 years. The question you posed was, what has he been doing? The one thing we can vouch for, he's never stopped training. Like he's not had time off from a gym. He didn't go missing for a year or two. He hasn't stopped training. So I think that question will be answered, fairly quickly. That he has not just been sitting on a couch for years and decided to make a comeback, like a lot do when you see that they've been out that far. All right, guys, that was your co-main event, and we are ready for the last professional fight of the evening on Saturday night. This is your main event, sponsored by the Tennessee Army National Guard. In the middleweight division, your main event is the Peaceful Warrior, Caleb Crump, coming in at 5-3 from Elevation Fight Team. I think everybody knows Elevation Fight Team if you are a student of this game. But Caleb Crump coming into Chattanooga, Tennessee, and has made it well known. He loves taking fighters' undefeated records, and he is coming in to upset the apple cart and send the Chattanooga faithful home in a real bad mood. But he is going to be taking on 4-0 undefeated prospect Torres, the Punisher Finney.
Yeah, man, stoked for this one. Of course, we're all familiar with Torres Finney. He's fought with us. Most of his fights have been with us. Actually, he's another hot prospect at 185. Compact, powerful wrestler. Another guy, much like Ian, that is just a very difficult guy to match. There's between him, Ian, and Robbie. That's 3 undefeated guys. Like when you're trying to put matches together, it proves to be difficult. But Torres is very charismatic. He's got just all those intangible it factor type things. And this will be, in my opinion, maybe not on paper, in my opinion, this would be his toughest fight. I think his last opponent with Icon might have had a better record, but I don't think he's as good a fighter as Caleb Crump's going to be. Torres has been able to implement that wrestling every time. I don't think I've seen Torres not succeed on a takedown yet. So to me, the thing that I'm watching for in this fight is just like, can Crump give him the resistance? We know that Torres is on the radar for the bigger shows. I think that most would agree he needs to get tested as best he can be tested before he makes his way to a Contender Series and and has any presumed deficiencies exposed. Maybe they're there, maybe they're not. I like to know for sure. Someone be able to stave off those takedowns for a bit, make him have to do some other things. But we'll see if Caleb Crump's the guy. It looks like Caleb Crump's got a fair amount of wrestling experience himself, training with world-class team in Elevation. He's going to have the reach and length advantage, but has also fought at 170, I see. So there's a few, just intangibles here. The line on this one, another one that I'm surprised is as wide as it is. I expected Torres to be favored, did not expect him to be minus 800, with Crump coming back at plus 600. Total is juiced to the under 1.5 minus 200 and the over 1.5 plus 180. Cody, last breakdown. Who you got here?
Gotta go with Torrance Finney. I mean, this kid impressed me top to bottom. If you just look at his record and his style and his pedigree and his wrestling and all this and that, great gym, then on paper, it's, oh yeah, he's a bright prospect. But meeting him and talking to him and getting to hang out with the guy, like, he's very, very smart. He's very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the work that needs to get done, and he's more than willing to do it. Here's a guy that could have wrestled a lot farther in college, but a damn good football player, and he liked to play football. I think that kind of is the reason why you don't see, oh my God, multiple-time D1 All-American. You just see, oh, he was a state champion in high school, didn't wrestle in college. Yeah, played football. Great athlete, solid guy. When you see him, I talked about Ian Stevens' pecs earlier. Torrance Finney, my God. Arms got stretch marks on them because he used to be a 300-pound football player. Now he fights at 185, and believe me, he's just as strong, if not stronger. I really like this kid. I think he's got a bright future. The matchmakers know he has a bright future. His management team, his teammates, his coaches, everybody knows it. It's just like you said. He needs to incrementally take those tougher fights until he gets to a point where, you know, you're confident that I can go in and mix it up with anybody in the world. I think he's already confident he could do that. He's spent time with Nagogi with some high-level guys, but he's also traveled abroad a little bit. He's gone down to Fusion XL over in Orlando. He's worked with the likes of Jacare Souza. He's worked with really high-level guys, Phil Rowe and Mike Davis. I think all of that is really putting him into a comfort zone, and he's just getting better and better. When you look at his record as an amateur, he finishes people very quickly, and then as a pro, he takes out Wesley McCracken and Jake Zog and Justin Dorsey. And I heard some people saying his last fight with Ivan Betnich was, a little boring. I could not disagree more. It was systematic. He broke him down. You don't need these first round finishes all the time to make the guy carry your weight, take his spirit, take that Bushido vibe away from him. And that's what he did. Eventually took him out in the third round. I saw right then that Torrance Finney's cardio was solid for a guy that carries that kind of muscle around. Wrestling, we know, is on point, but the ground and pound's there. He has a killer instinct. He's not looking to settle for a decision. He's looking to get that finish, and I think that's going to pay dividends in this one. Caleb Crum, he's got a heart of gold. He thinks he can win this fight. He has that self-belief in himself. He's a very, very confident person. He believes in himself. I think you need all that. He's got a lot of big things going against him. He's undersized, but also he just doesn't have the durability. When you look at his losses, he gets finished for the most part. Charlie Radke, 2 fights back. Charlie Radke drops him with a jab about 20 seconds into the round. He pops back up. Now he doesn't want to engage. And then Charlie Radke pops him with a second jab. And he's all the way out on the way down, right? His fight with Devin Weber, he's on wobbly legs the entire time. Weber could have knocked him out had he just pressed the action a little bit more. But Caleb Crump, you got to knock him out. He's not going to quit on himself. But I don't think he's the kind of guy that can just push Torrance Finney back and create this trail brawl. If he gets clipped, he's going down. If he tries to wrestle or grapple with Torrance Finney, it's not going to go good. If he tries to outmuscle him, it's not going to happen. Kid's got good cardio, trains at elevation. He trains in the mountains. That's all going to be good for him. But Torrance Finney's not going anywhere anytime soon, especially in his own backyard with all of his friends, family, and teammates supporting him and cheering him on. He's going to need a Herculean effort to put this guy away. And I just don't think Crump has the durability to really force him into those spots. So when I look at minus 800 Torrance Finney, first of all, I like it way better than I like minus 1,000 Ian Stevens. But beyond that, how do we improve that minus 800 price tag? I think you go with the Torrance Finney by knockout. Torrance Finney's got a bunch of knockouts, right? Whether they come from ground and pound or not. You guys booked him as an amateur. Antonio Holt with 11 seconds, right? Tristan Scarborough, 50 seconds. Well, I guess it was to the third. Kevin Minard, 5 seconds into the first round, he knocked him out. This boy can throw. Does he have great boxing technique yet? No, but neither does Trevor Peake. But they're getting better every time. And if they hit you even once, it's game over. That's kind of a tough thing to overcome. So kudos to Crump. Hats off to him, because not a whole lot of people got their hands up saying, I want to fight Torrance Finney. And he does. But yeah, I think on the Contender Series this summer, if I don't see Torrance Finney, I'm starting a petition.
All right, guys, that does it. That was the professional side of Aries Fight Series 16. I'm like you guys. This is amped 2.0. I can't wait. I know the city of Chattanooga can't wait. Cody, I dare say that the fighters have missed your professional breakdowns from us, and I think they're going to be excited and surprised when they see us post this again, because it really did, honestly, not just blowing smoke up your ass here, my man, because we love you, but it was really getting to be something that I think a lot of these pro fighters were enjoying. They loved your breakdowns. And it got to the point before we kind of went on a little drought there for a little while here, and being able to do this, that they were asking us, is there a Cody Saftic breakdown coming up? Is there a Cody Saftic interview coming up? Because they really felt that your analysis of their fights was so spot on that they really enjoyed it. So I'm happy to be able to give that to them. Tim, parting words, my man.
Hey, man, we're excited for it, Cody. Thank you for joining us. If you're out there, make sure you all join us this weekend at Aries 16 from the Chattanooga Convention Center, downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. With the doors open at 5, we'll get started at 6 o'clock. Your tickets while you can at fightertix.com. Watch the pay-per-view at Spectation Sports. And Cody, we will hopefully continue to make this a trend, and we'll be talking to you next time. Always great to catch up with you here. And Jeff, I guess we'll be checking in Chattanooga here in 2 short days. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back next week with our recap edition of the show, and you can watch it on Spectation Sports, and we'll recap this thing next week. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.